Welcome, guys. My name is Lon Nguyen, the owner of vMcKnight.com. And today I'm going to show you one of my mastering monitoring series. And today's special because it's one of my favorite widgets. It's the list view. And learning this view, you can become almost a pro if you master this widget alone. Right? So the list view, right? Like I mentioned before, I personally and by far is most used widget by far. And like I mentioned before, if you become really good at it, you can probably handle a lot of use cases that anyone wants. It can also be used for reporting purposes, which I'll show you in a little bit. Right? Not only reporting, but you can also export the data to Excel, right? Not just from reporting, but also from the dashboard itself, which I'll show you as well. It can be used as a selector to feed other widgets. And last but not least, you can actually do actions from it, which I will show you what that means in the demo. Okay, so let's go straight to the demo. So some of the dashboards that that are on my website today is like the health check dashboard, right? You select an environment and instantly you can do a health check on what's wrong with it, right? So here you see VM performance issues. I actually put a filter. So I don't care about, let's say, 1,000 VMs. I only care about which VMs are running over 80%. And you see here, I put a 7-day average to tell me how long it's been doing that, right? So that's all, this is all list view here. And I add the cluster so I can easily find it, right? So this is a simple list view with a filter. Another sample is my inventory dashboard. Here you can see I have coloring, right? Not only just a list view of host, but also I have coloring here. I have CPU memory contention. I kind of, in the words, right, are colored. And if I scroll more, I have all these, IPs and everything you need to know about the host, including the bias and the model service tag, right? On top of that, on the bottom here, you see, oops. On the top of that, on the bottom here, I have a summary, right? So I can actually, without doing the math, I can actually see the average of all these hosts for memory contention. And here I get the total and the average as well, right, for CPU memory and anything that I want. And I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, some bells and whistles of the widget, right? I can search for a host. So I can say WDC, and I just start with WDC ones, right? Another thing you can do is, like I said before, you can export this list. So here I can export the list from here to to a Excel spreadsheet. And if I select the host, I can actually, well, you see here I did an interaction, right? So I actually did an action to see which VMs on this host. So if I click this again, you can see here, I can see which VMs are on this host, right? That's an interaction to another list view. And if I click on this, or any object actually, I can actually do actions. And as you can see here, there's a lot of actions I can do, right, from the list view. Just by selecting the VM, I can move the VM, power it off, reboot, right, execute scripts, and it all depends on stuff that you configure. If you add vRealize to this, you can have unlimited actions here, right? So these are some cool bells and whistles of this view widget. Okay, with that being said, I'll show you how to create this from scratch. So you go to dashboards, and I'm going to create a new dashboard. Okay, I'm going to give it a name, right? Always give your dashboard title a suffix of your company. In this case, I'm going to use my website, vMcKnight.com. And I'm going to call it something list view test. Okay, so here are my widgets. And I'm going to look for the list view. All right, so I can scroll down if I want to. And here's the view. Right, so it's actually a view widget, but this view can be a lot of things. It could be a list, it could be a graph, it could be text, it could be images. In this case, I'm going to drag this here. And I'm gonna do 2 list views today because I want to show you a sample of the interaction as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna save this. Okay, so I have 2 views. Right, so I'll move down here. I'll make this a little wider. All right, I'm gonna give it a name. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the host stats. Right, I just want to do, your manager says I want a bunch of hosts and know the versions, how you use the specs, which vCenter belongs to. I just want to know some cool stats for this, right? Right. So one thing you'll notice is self-provider, right? Since I want to statically assign this to all hosts, I'm going to turn it on, right? That's just basically saying you're statically assigning it to something, which means you have to do this next step here. So the next step, I will add my object. And you see here, it's based on adapters. So I know it's host, so I know it's a vCenter adapter that I'm looking for. And as you see this environment, I have a lot of adapters. So here's my vCenter. Now I'm gonna show you some cool tricks. Use vCenter world, right? I can point this to a single vCenter if I want to, right? Just to get the host for this particular vCenter. If I want all vCenters combined, I would choose vCenter world, right? So that's the wildcard for everything in the VMware environment, right? I'll press OK. And now these are my views. I actually want to create a new one. Right, then now you can select your, this is 8.10 by the way. I'm going to select the list view. Okay, give it a name. Once again, make sure you name your, with your company name, dash. I'm going to call it host stats for, all right, just going to give it a name. I'm not going to any of these advanced settings for now. I'll just keep that empty. I'll go next. Okay, so select your subject, right? First of all, I want to delete this. I don't know why it's showing that. You can either hit the drop down and choose vCenter. And since I want host, I'm going to choose host stats, right? Host system as my subject. And now it gives me a bunch of metrics for a host, right? So I'm going to go do some obvious ones here. I'll do CPU usage. Right, let's do, right, I'm going to add this here. And okay, you see there's a preview on the right side. I'm actually going to preview this to vCenter world. That. So here you see I have all my hosts here. And I add a CPU and usage. So there you go. It just shows me CPU and usage for everything. Okay. See this name here? I'll make it a little cleaner. I'm just call it CPU %. In the dark view, the refresh is right here. So you refresh it and you see the name is a little cleaner. Right. So now I want to sort this by descending. Right. So I do from highest to lowest. Now refresh. Now descending. All right. Now I want to do color code this. Right. So I don't want to do, like, let's say usually I do thresholds of 80%, 85, 90 for host CPU. But since I don't have anything running hot right now, you know what? I'll do from memory. Let's just add memory here. Let's add a second stat here. I'll do memory. All right, let's refresh this. So you see I added a second metric here. Now I have memory, right? Now, I want to sort this by memory instead. So I'll do none here. I'll click on memory and I'll do descending on memory. Right, let's refresh this. There we go. So now I have memory. Okay. And I'll call this memory %. Okay. And you see memory, CPU memory. So I have 2 nice metrics. Now, next thing I want to do is color code this so I don't have to look at this all the time, right? I want to know if it's running bad or good, right? So I'll go to advanced settings. And I'll put yellow as, let's do 60. Actually, let's do 50, 60, 70, just to show some samples here. Okay, now refresh this, and there we go. You see now, based on this thresholds of yellow, orange, and red, anything between the 50 and 60 is yellow, 60 and 70 is orange, and then anything above 70 is red, which works, right? Okay, I'll do the same thing for CPU. Since I'm gonna keep the same, 50, 60, 70. As you can see, there's nothing over 50%, so that's why it's all green, right? Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is that let's add another property for memory. I want to, as you can see here, I did 70 averages, right, for this, right? So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Okay, so I'm going to add memory metric again. And you see here, once I add it, it adds a memory metric. And when I refresh it, it's showing me the same metric, right? Because I added the same thing again. So how do I get this to, well, let's do 30-day average, right? So I'm gonna call this one memory 30-day average, right? 90%. Let's make it a little cleaner. 30-day average. Okay. Okay. So now, how do I get this to show average? Right. So now change the transformation to average, like that. And let's look at this again, right? There's a lot of things you can do. You do minimum, maximum, average, right? There's a lot more things here, percentile. Probably in part 2, I'll show you more advanced, some of the stuff I use here, but for now, I'll do the typical stuff like average, right? So there you go, average. And now let's refresh this. And now you see that the numbers are slightly different, but this is a lab, so it's not going to fluctuate as much, right? So this is my 30-day average, but how do I know it's 30 days? Well, I have to go to time settings to set to 30 days. So let's go next. Now go to time settings, and I'll set this 30 days, like that. Okay, now refresh. And there you go. You see now it's based on 30-day average. Right? So how do I know it's average? So if you look in the middle here, transformation, these are current values, and this one's an average, right? This third metric here. So that's how I can tell them apart, right? Now, if I add it again, I can do something like memory max 30 days, like that. And I change it to maximum, right? Now see, it says maximum. Now refresh this, right? I'm gonna get right there the maximum for those for the last 30 days. Okay, and I can color code this if I want, right? But I'm not gonna, you get the point how to do the color code here. Okay, pretty cool. Now I want to add more metrics to this, right? So this is my list. This is my host view here. I want to know like stuff like, oh, which vCenter belongs to, like the hardware, right? So if I go here, as you can see here, this is metrics. And if I type in vCenter, just in case, like, okay, oh, here we go, there's some properties, right? So I'll add vCenter, and I'll make this a little cleaner. I'll call it vCenter. I'll refresh it. And there you go, I got my vCenter, right? Pretty cool. Right, let's look for power state. I want to know if it's powered on or not. Right, usually I don't memorize this myself. Okay, there you go, power state. power state. All right. And there you go. All right. So let's say I want to move this to the front. All right. I can move this to the front. And there you go. See how I just moved it to the front like that. And okay. C is unknown here. I kind of want to move anything that says unknown, or maybe something. Let's say I want to move this thing, anything with Kraken off the list, right? So that's the next thing I'm gonna do, is show you how to do the filter. Okay. So I'm gonna show you two things. I'm gonna show you how to filter it based on metrics like this, and I'm gonna show you how to filter it, a second filter, to remove things like this, right? That I don't need to see, right? Okay, so that's my next trick. Is I'll go to filters, and the first thing I want to do is I want to say I don't care about, you know, let's say you have 1,000 hosts. I just care which one's running hot right now, right? So I'll do anything running over 50%. So I'll pick the metric. I'll do well, I know it's memory, so I'll choose memory. See current value. If I want to do by average, I can, right? I can do average or the max, right? In this case, this is what the current value right now is greater than. Let's do 50. Actually, let's do 40 so I can see some greening there. Right, there you go. There's still a 40 there. And you see how it moves everything else to the list, right? Okay. Now, sometimes, you know, let's say, you know, this W2 thing is a test, you know, test environment. Rather than you come in here and look at this thing, you know, in your mind say ignore W2. You rather than just every day look at this and try to ignore this, why don't you just remove it off the list, right? So I'm gonna remove anything that starts with W2 as the host. So I'm gonna add another criteria. Now, if I add here, it's an end statement, right? I'm gonna move this real quick. If I add down here, it's an or statement. Okay, so in this case, I want an end statement, right? I want it to be over 40%, and the host does not start with W2. So let's remove this one. And I'm adding an end statement, right? So here's the name. The name is actually a property. So I'm gonna pick the property and right, name. And does not contain W2. Now I'm gonna do W2 dash because it could have, you know, by chance could have W2 somewhere in here. So I'm gonna do W2 dash, which is kind of gives me an extra filter, layer filtering. Okay, so I'll put that in there, and there you go. It moves all the W2s, right? Host. So now I got this list the way I want it to, right? It shows me the vCenter, right? It shows me 30 average, shows me 30 max, right? So now I'm going to show you the next step. You know, make this a little more detailed, right? So let's look at this here. Here's my host. So you see here, I added a lot of more metrics here and a lot of different colors. Actually, let me go back here and select this one here. And by the way, you can get these dashboards from our website. If you go to vmcknight.com, go to downloads, you can get some of these dashboards from my website here. Right, this is the inventory dashboard. Okay, so here's my host. Okay. So as you see in my host, I have a summary on the bottom, right, for total and averages. And you see I removed the total for CPU because I didn't want to add this together and have, like, you know, the total would be 3,000%, right? Kind of just doesn't make sense to add that up. So I kind of removed it here. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, go to summary. I'll add a new summary. And the aggregation is average. So I'll call this the title average. And there you go. You see, just add the average here, right, on below. Pretty cool, right? So this is the average max memory, the average memory. And then I'm gonna add a second one to do total. So second one, I'm gonna change it to sum, which is total. And I'll just call it total. And this is what I was talking about before, right? I don't want that. I don't want this column to add because it just gives me a number that's not useful for me. It's not good for the eyes looking at that either. So I'll go to advanced settings and I'll uncheck it for anything like this. Right. And there you go. I removed it, right? So the total is good for something like, you know, total memory, add the memory of all the hosts, add the disk size of all the hosts, add the total VMs for all the hosts, right? So that's what, you know, some metrics you add here to that this makes sense for. All right, so now I have my, the way exactly I want it. Now, let me show you one more thing. You can do filters based on words. So how do you do that? That's my data. And let's do, let me think real quick. Based on, okay, let's do connection state. All right, let me move the filter. Let's move this real quick. All right, so I want to make it turn red when it's not responding, right? So I go back to here, to data. I'll choose connection state. I'll make this a little cleaner. Right, so now I go advanced settings, and it'll turn red when it's not responding, right? So I have to type in the words. It's not case sensitive. For example, I just type in not responding like that, and there we go. You see it's red now, right? And I can add more words to this, right? So if I want to connect it to show yellow, I can do like that. Right, pretty cool. But of course, connected is good, so I'm going to delete that. And there we go, right? Pretty cool. Okay, so now the next step is to create this. When you create it, automatically selects it by default. So now I'm going to just save it. And there you go. The cell provider is pointing to visual world. Right. If I click on the eyeball, once again, I get the export button here. A couple of things I want to show you is you can actually override this 30 days and kind of go in here and just set it yourself or set it to a specific time, right? And it'll change this time here, override this time here. Okay, so I'm going to show you another trick. So here's my Beam inventory dashboard. And rather than, sometimes I look at, I don't want to recreate things when something's already created for me. So like, for example, I did all this work here. It's probably overkill for most people that has so much data. So I kind of want to reuse this dashboard and reuse this list view here that I created and make it a little tailored to the application owners, right? So I'm going to edit this one. So I'm going to reverse engineer it. I'm going to say, okay, what did this person used in the backend, right? I'll click on edit. Okay, so I go here and I'll click on this one and I see which view that I used, right, for this one here. and then you just copy it. Right, I go to my dashboard. Rather than recreate it, I want to clone that one. So here I'm going to do VM stats for app owners. Right. For this one, I'm doing interaction, right? So I'm not going to do self-provider. I'm going to show you how that works. I'm going to output data. I'm going to search for exactly the one I used here. Now, I can either use this one or I can actually clone it and modify my own, right? So I'll call this one. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. Just going to do VM stats for app owners. Right, next. And you see I did a lot of work already, right? So yeah, it's right, a lot of information here. And let's say I don't care about stuff. I don't care about alerts for them. Contention might confuse them, so I'll move that. Yeah, I'm not going to tell them about latency. I'm not going to tell them about IOPS, something like that. IP address, uptime, CPU memory total, disk news. All right, that's good. OS clusters, okay, that's good. I'm not going to tell them the VM versions. I don't care about that. I'm not going to give them tags. So there you go. Right. So I just kind of clean this up and show them things that I allow them to see. Right. So there you go. Now here's one more clip. And now I just create it. Now, this is filter. I had to remove the filter. Right. So now to find my one I just created. Right, there you go. So here we go. So now I select it, click on save. And remember, I did not do self-provider, hence why it's not statically showing data. I'm gonna actually go edit this dashboard. And I'm gonna do interaction. So when I select the host, it's gonna show me VM stats for that host that I select. Okay, so that's how you do it. You actually put the forwarder to the widget that I want to send the data to. And I'm gonna hide it real quick and see if this works. And there you go. Now I see my data. And I'm gonna click on more. And let's save this. So one drawback of the this widget here is that you you can't use can't click on here, right? Click on this little blue icon here because it'll mess the thing up. So as in, if you click on this one, it's going to go straight to the object itself. So you want to go back like that. And yep, just make sure you click on the side here. Okay, so now let's do a recap. Right, so I showed you here today that you can use colors and thresholds to easily view the critical data, such as high CPU, high memory. You can use transformation to transform the data, right? For the average and max was sample today. You have a summary to calculate total and averages, which I showed you as using the summary. Filter, right? So I did filtering. I filtered based on a metric, such as high memory. And also I did a second filter to remove based on names, right? You can add any view to a report, which I'll show you how to do that shortly. And use views for interactions, which I just showed you just now. Let's show you how to do report. So now let's go click back here. And if I go to reports, all right, I'll create a new one. All right, I'll call it vRealize. And I'll call this one managers report. And I'll search for that view that I just created. In this case, there we go. VM stats for app owners. Thing about this is you want to make this landscape view. Right, and I'm gonna do my host. Right, host stats for manager. I'll do that as well. I'll put landscape mode so I can see more data. And colorization, it will actually show the colors. Remember how we put colors in this and these widgets? We're going to keep this coloring with the report. Okay, format, I'll do PDF and CSV, which is Excel spreadsheet. If you want, you do cover page and footer and stuff like that, but I'm just going to leave that out for now. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run my reports. So when you run it, you want it based on visual world, right? All hosts, all VMs. So I'll do vCenter. And I'll do visual world. You see it's running. And I can refresh it manually here. Nope, it's done. So you see PDF and CSV. I'll do the PDF here. And there you go. I have my nice report with coloring, right? See how I checked that box coloring. I did the horizontal mode, so you can get more metrics going across. Right. So you see the color makes a big difference. I can see not responding instantly. Right. And here's my VMs, right? So you see kind of there's a lot of metrics for VMs, and you see it fitted pretty well. Right. But when you do Excel, it's not gonna show the colors, right, in the CSV file. So here's the CSV file. You can actually click on that. And I'll share this out. Right, so here you go. Here's click on these tabs to make it a little bigger. Since there's two data, this is the host data here and my VM data right here. You see it's showing both. And the colors do not carry, right? You see how in the PDF view there's coloring, while in this view, there's no coloring, right? And of course, everything else you can just do it yourself, right? You can do that. And I'll do this one, same thing. Oops. Right, like that. Right, so that's how you do a report. And next, I want to show you some tips. Right, so you want to use this list view to automate as much work as possible. Right, if your task is to show a report on, host configurations like E6i versions, for example, use a list view. Right, if you want the performance data, you get it from the list view. Another tip is move important metrics to the front, right? So things that you want to, that's more important to you, like CPU and memory, right? The thing with colors, right? The important metrics that you put colors in, move them to the front, right? As you see with my dashboards earlier, all the metrics that matter to me, I move to the front. Everything like IPs and everything to the back is not important. And remember to filter out things you don't want to see, right? Don't just create a list and say ignore, anything that says test on it, right? Modules will, create the work and add the extra filter and say remove anything called test in it, right? Coloring thresholds, right? You see the big difference between coloring thresholds. And any metrics that matter, you put the colors in there. It's 10 times quicker to view stuff that has colors in it than just all black and white. Once again, right, you don't have to view the report like I showed you before. From the dashboard view, you can actually export any of the lists instantly from the dashboard. Okay, thank you guys for viewing this YouTube video. And remember to subscribe, like, and share. And also comment for anything for any feedback, or also for any videos you want to see in the future. And thanks again, once again.